Call again, right?
Blog Talk Radio.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, you guys out there. This morning, as always, I'm running around. It's Saturday morning trying to get things done and get ready for today's show. And I had a little trouble with one of my laptops. But I want to say good morning to everybody again. It is a gorgeous day here in Atlanta, Georgia. And our guest is dialing in international. So it's midnight where he is, even though in the New York City time. And I know different parts of the United States, some places it might be 10 o'clock, some places it might be only 8 o'clock here in the U.S. So we thank all of you, our loyal off-the-shelf listeners, regardless of the time it is where you are, for joining us here at Off the Shelf on this last Saturday in July. So we want to welcome you and thank you. And I want to start today with this quote that I want to leave with you. I started several months ago starting the show with a quote for you to think about. And the quote for today's July 29th show is, I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire around me. You know, I just thought about this. That kind of lines up with a scripture, something Christ is credited with saying in the Bible where he says, greater is he that is within me than he that is in the world. I'm not sure who is responsible for this quote. I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire around me. We definitely have what it takes to live a good life. As our guest, Andy, when we start talking about his books, will give us more insight from his perspective on. So, again, I want to welcome you, and ask you how good of a mystery sleuth are you, and how important are relationships to you. Some of us are very focused on ourselves. I find that the more I focus on me, the less happy I feel. That also kind of tunes into today's show, although I didn't intend it for it to, for that reason. That's not why I said it. But the more I focus on me, that is just an odd thing. And we feel like we have to take care of ourselves. We have to protect ourselves. We seek after comfort. And these things that we go after actually keep us from our destinies and the good that we could be exposed to. The path we take is not going to get us where we're trying to be. And this is something that Raymond Clark has to learn and love pour over me. And some of the other characters, Raymond has 4 great friends that he meets in college. His early life is very turbulent. His father has untreated alcoholism, and anybody living with a parent with that can just imagine, and Raymond's also an only child, what he's gone through. But he also is a track and field, standout. He's an academic standout, and he meets his soulmate, Brenda, when he's in college. But what he's gone through so far in his life takes a while sometimes for us to shake off that old stuff. But what's meant to be is meant to be. If you value friendships, if you value seeing 2 people come together who are meant to be together, how they shape and influence each other and other people around them. And if you also like a murder mystery that's tucked in the story, I do believe you'll love Love Pour Over Me. And you can get a copy of Love Pour Over Me, an ebook or print, Barnes & Noble, ebook it, Amazon, Walmart. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask the clerk for it, and they can just say you want to get a copy of Love Pour Over Me by Denise Turney, and they can order a copy for you, because Love Pour Over Me is carried by some of the largest book distributors in the world. And I keep saying this every week, and I hope that instead of just listening to me say it, you will go out and get a copy of Love Pour Over Me. You can get a copy for about $3, and the book itself is a little over 300 pages. So almost, what is that? I don't know what that comes to per page, but I hope you go out and get a copy and let me know how you enjoy Love Pour Over Me. And now let us go and meet today's guest. His work, he's so talented. I love when I meet people who they have a variety of talents, because he's also an illustrator, an artist, and a writer, and he so many talents. And our special off-the-shelf guest this morning is Andy Boerger. And if I'm not saying his name right, I hope when he comes on that he will correct me. And Andy is the author of the book, The Angel Corpse. We're going to learn a little bit more about that. What is the Angel Corpse? Andy is also a writer, illustrator, and he's just an overall creative. Other books that he's written include Letting Go. I love that title. I Like You More Each Day, and A Grownups Garden of Verses. You can check out more and learn more about Andy by staying tuned to Off the Shelf, and also by clicking over to Andy's website at Andy's Art, and that's a hyphen, andyboerger.blogspot.com, and that's ANDYSART hyphen ANDYBOERGER.blogspot.com. Welcome to Off the Shelf, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, tell us where you're calling from so our listeners know just how far you're. It's midnight where he is. Tell the listeners where you're dialing in from right now.
It is now midnight in Tokyo, Japan.
Wow. Really appreciate it. We had another guest come on, and she was dialing in somewhere from Europe, and it was like 2 in the morning, or I forget how early it was when she dialed into the show. So I want to thank you, Andy, for dialing in from Tokyo, and it's just a pleasure to have you here with us. Now, some of the first 3 to 4 questions I'm going to ask you before we go into your books and your specific work. These are questions I ask all our guests because I would like to give our listeners backstory on our guests so that we don't just dive right into questions. So to begin, could you tell Off the Shelf listeners where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm actually, even though I'm calling from Tokyo, I'm not that far from Atlanta in terms of where I grew up, born and raised in Columbus. And I stayed there all the way through, I went to Ohio State University. So that's where I finished up. And then I've been doing some traveling since then. I spent most of it. I've been in Japan for it's getting to about half of my entire life actually. So I've kind of settled here. But to return to your question,
go ahead.
Well, you had asked about growing up. I would just say it was it was a kind of a suburban. I grew up in the suburbs, and there were not a lot of kind of huge dramatic experiences. It was pretty much just a kid growing up in the suburbs and kind of trying to come to terms with life that way. It was a pretty good. It was Columbus is not such a big town, and it was kind of a nice place to grow up.
And I know exactly where it is. I'm listening to you. As soon as you said it, I know exactly where Columbus is because I actually grew up in Dayton. And then later Knoxville, Tennessee. How did you get to Tokyo then? You went to Ohio State, and you're from Columbus. So how did you get to Tokyo?
Well, I think that's a really interesting story because I love the name of your interview, the off the shelf, and I was working. I was still working part time. I had pretty much just graduated, and I was working part time at a library. And I kind of a book just kind of popped off the shelf of me, which was called "Work Your Way Around the World," and it kind of just kind of inspired the wanderlust in me. It showed me that there's different places you can go and you can get different kinds of jobs. And I thought, well, why don't I do that? Why don't I just I'm 22, coming up on 23. I can do this. And so I brought the book home and I read it and I kind of thought about different places and I finally settled on thinking that Japan would be really exciting and interesting. And that was how that whole thing got started.
So you are someone who, I guess you follow your inner guidance instead of, okay, let me do what my parents did or take the safe route. So it's not surprising that you wrote the book you did. When you were a kid, Andy, a very young child, what did you dream of becoming? When you were real young, what did you dream of?
That is a great question because, I think I remember one time, I think I always loved words. So there was a time. Now this is the furthest thing from what I actually became. But people would ask me what I wanted to become when I was maybe 4 or 5, 6 years old. Just talking to kids. And I think I heard the word broker. I didn't know what it meant, but I heard it on a TV show, and I thought, well, I'll sound like I really know my stuff if I tell people that I want to become a broker. So without even having any idea what broker meant, I said, oh, I want to be a broker, and that was always very impressive to people. Oh, Andy Boerger, he's looking at me, he's 5 years old and he wants to be a broker, and that obviously did not happen. But it's interesting because it just kind of tells the story of how words have always been really important to me. So it's just maybe the sound of the word that made me say that that's what I wanted to become.
Interesting. So how old were you? You heard somebody say broker words. Just hearing it had an influence on you, not even knowing what it was. How old were you when you were certain that you wanted to be a writer?
Oh wow, it was in high school, and I had a really good teacher, and there were a few of us. We were all pretty much from the same neighborhood, and so we would drive to the school together because it was on the opposite end of town, and he encouraged all of us, and there was 4 of us, and we had almost like a kind of a little salon back in his apartment. Maybe 2 or 3 nights a month, and he really encouraged us as writers and communicators, and that really meant a lot to me. And he had a high praise for me that the things that they were things that a 16 or 17-year-old read. I don't think I would be very proud of them if I were to read them right now, but he really saw something in it, and that was really important to me. So just that kind of that encouragement that I got.
Oh, okay, and I've heard people say just the opposite. We had a guest when she did go on to write, but she had a teacher who just tore up something that she wrote and turned in to school in class, and she said she didn't write for years and years and years. So for you had somebody encouraging you, and that's how you knew you wanted to do it. You also are an illustrator, and I'm looking at something you illustrated right now, even as I'm interviewing you. What a talent. That some people I've had say to me, I don't understand how anybody takes a blank page or a blank computer screen and creates a story. They just don't understand it. It, for me, is the drawing. How do you take something that's not there and create this image? And people who are artists like an illustrator like yourself or painters, they literally spend hours just perfecting their craft. One piece, they can spend hours on it. They can spot the slightest little thing off with it that anybody else would totally miss. So that's something that is a mystery to me. How did you get started illustrating, Andy? And is that your first love, or would you say writing is your first love?
I would say that the drawing is definitely the first love, and so it was drawing that I studied more at the university. I majored in art, and even way before then, as a kid, I used to love comic books, and so I had 2 brothers, and we all had some degree of artistic talent, and so we drew a lot, and we kind of had these contests with each other, and we tried to come up with new cartoons. We would make new comic book superheroes, and we were always kind of like there was that kind of healthy rivalry between siblings that got us to work, to show each other what we were doing and try to one up each other. And so I was the one of the 3 of us. I was the only one that it really stuck with. But I think the experience of the 3 of us kind of trying to outdo each other this would have been really young age, maybe 8, 9, 10. That was kind of made me feel, well, I really like this. I like doing this, and this is kind of who I am.
Okay, so now your books, The Angel Corpse, and the Letting Go, which is easier to say than to do. Where did you get the idea? The Angel Corpse. Again, when I catch myself really zoning in on me and I got to do this and that. That is when I feel the least happy. And it's not that you can always focus on other people, because you do have to, self-love is, I think, critical. But where did you get the idea that it's beneficial to put others first? And it's something that women do a lot of. You can overdo this too, though. You can overdo putting others first, and then that's not good. So if you could talk about that balance, and what do you mean when you say put others first? Because you can't neglect yourself either. Because you can't give what you don't have.
That's absolutely right. Yes, there's a chapter in the book. Sure, I'd love to. There's a chapter in the book specifically referencing that. It's the chapter of the book is titled "Angels, Not Doormats," where I really want to make that distinction between, nothing in the book is trying to recommend that we should kind of just put ourselves aside and live completely in servitude to others. We can't make anybody happy that way. So the book is definitely not about that, and I make that point in the book. But the other thing that you said is that when we put ourselves first and foremost and really just become so focused on ourselves, that is not a path to happiness either, because we just obsess, and we can never really make ourselves happy. We'll never please ourselves. And it'll all be so short-sighted. We can give ourselves like little maybe packets of happiness if we come up on top in one particular day or one particular instant. But then we're just going to have to go right back and then we just have to go right back and do the whole thing all over again. We'll wake up the next morning and think, okay, well, who do I have to impress today, or how can I win my own approval today? So yeah, it's a fruitless task that I can't live by.
How did you come up with that ideal, though? How did you come up to the ideal that it's more beneficial? Where did that even come from? That concept for you?
Well, I think it came first. It kind of, people taught me that, because there were different people in my life who they obviously were doing that. And so I mentioned a couple of them in the book, but I was a lot of my life has kind of gone in the direction of where if somebody hadn't been there and somebody hadn't stepped in the right way, in a really tender way, and really kind of a way that they were able to really provide service to me that I really needed, just kind of on the spot. They didn't get anything out of it, but I got everything out of it. And if they hadn't shown up when they did, how they did, then my life would be on a completely different path, and I don't think it would have been as good of a path. So just kind of looking back over my life and thinking, wow, there were people that just really stepped in. They didn't have to, and they were my angels, right? I mean, that was the way I saw it. They were my angels. There they were, and just when I needed them, and they didn't ask for anything in return. And so I thought, well, that would be they're teaching me. That's how to live. And so it became a sort of a core philosophy of mine.
Other people, and now you're doing that good work in helping others to see the benefit. And again, and I appreciate that you have that. Don't be a doormat, because there are enough people doing that. That's not the answer as well. Do we join the Angel Corps, Andy? When do we become members? Do we join the Angel Corps? And for some reason I was thinking about Christ's disciples. I picked his disciples. Do we join the Angel Corps when we help, forgive, care for, and love others? What does it take to become a member of the Angel Corps?
Well, I think it's really the first thing is to have an understanding that like I said, and like we're both saying, it's not being a doormat. So it's just the point of my book, The Angel Corps, is that these are kind of smallish. Maybe they don't cost the doer a huge amount. They're not these huge sacrificial things we need to do, but they mean so much to the people that we do them for, or the animals that we do them for. There's a chapter about just doing simple things, caring for the animals in our midst. But that that an angel act of service is always going to mean much more to the person who receives it than it's going to require from the person who does it. So I guess maybe the first thing is it's really not that hard. It's just and the next thing is just look for opportunities, because they're everywhere. When you just wake up in the morning and you say, I'm in. Today I'm a member of the Angel Corps, and so there's going to be moments in this day when somebody or some animal, some creature is going to need something, and most of the time, maybe all of the time, ideally, that I'll do it. I won't talk myself out of it. I'll step up to the plate.
And that is so easy to do. And I don't know if you ever heard of this book, A Course in Miracles. In it, Christ says we have countless opportunities every day to awaken and to really, really do good for ourselves and others. And we often just let those opportunities go by because we're so zoned in on me.
That's right.
Me.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very, very familiar with that book. That book was very influential for me.
Can you tell us about some of the people or events that you cover in the Angel Corps? And where did you get the idea for that title, that the Angel Corps as well?
Well, it's from the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps. It's a group of people. They're dedicated, and so I just had this idea. Well, we're not an official group, but there are people. As I said, like when I was a child, there were people that they just somehow knew that the best thing to do was to provide service when the opportunity appeared, because I saw that in my own life. I saw people doing things for me, or helping. My mom was a single mom, and so helping her, and so just the way that people would just kind of come in and not ask for anything, just out of the goodness of their heart. And I thought there really is this kind of team. And I thought a lot of the people who are members of the Angel Corps, they certainly don't think of themselves as members of the Angel Corps, but they would say, yeah, I know there are other people out there that have kind of got it. They get that this is the right way to live. And I just feel like there's a kind of a group energy, even though there's not any official name. I thought, well, I'll just give it an official name. I'll just, I'll pretend that this is this like worldwide organization, because in fact, I think that it is.
Yes, and every one of us, but we do substitutes for. You're not gonna meet a person who's not, and maybe even all animals. For some reason, we're zoned in on me. That's like the top thing, me. And then, we're here to do a greater work, and not a martyr's work. It's little simple things. I know it's like we go back to A Course in Miracles. It tells you that we're all connected, and there's no way to hurt one person and not hurt yourself, and there's no way to do good to somebody, a genuine good, and it not be good for you. But we come up with substitutes. We come up with, let me go to church, and then I won't love. I'll just go to church, and that'll be enough. Let me meditate, and then when I come out of my meditation, if somebody cuts me off in traffic, I'll curse them out. But I can still meditate. We don't get it.
Yes.
It's almost
yes,
like
right, exactly.
And what ways can reading the Angel Corps, the book, how can it help somebody who may have given up on their own life or humanity as a whole? They've observed the way things are going on in the world. Maybe they don't get everything they want. They're getting frustrated, and they're like, okay, that's it, I'm done. How can reading the Angel Corps help somebody who's reached that point?
Wow, that's a really excellent question. I think in some ways it's meant to be. It's a pep talk. It's kind of saying, I think I'm in that same place. I really don't. I don't think of myself as being one in the higher rank. I mean, I'm not a sergeant or a lieutenant or a general in the Angel Corps. I'm a private like everybody else, or like most of us. But so I want to talk from the perspective of somebody who is also just doing this as a series of daily decisions, and trying not to be too hard on myself, and definitely not trying to be too hard on my readers. Just saying, just do it, just try it, and if you don't, get back on your horse. Sometimes you're gonna walk by that homeless person, and you're gonna feel so into your own self and your own problems that you maybe you won't. You'll just walk by, but then just think, well, that was a missed opportunity. I could have done more, and that's okay, but I'll do better next time. But to just make it a sort of a kind of an ongoing commitment. And so for me, I think the first thing is that message. Every morning I wake up and I say, I'm in. And I remind myself. That's what I do. I say, I wake up, I get up, and I say, I'm in. So I'm just kind of sending that message to myself and to the universe that I remember that I'm a member of the Angel Corps, and I'm ready for the things that the day's going to bring me. And so I think that might be one of the first things, is that the book provides you a reminder to just make it a daily commitment, because if we don't do something every day, then we quickly get out of that habit. So to make it a habit, I think maybe that's one of the strengths of the book, is that it really reminds you to make it a habit. Yeah.
Had you ever lived your life?
Like brushing your teeth.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Had you ever lived your life really self-absorbed? And I'm thinking, I don't know if you've ever heard of Morty Lefkoe. He's crossed over, but he said 30 years he struggled in that. He struggled with depression, which makes, sometimes I think that is when we become too self-absorbed. Of course, there are chemicals going on in the brain, but who knows what kicks those off.
Yeah.
But you have to be somewhat self-absorbed to choose to be miserable a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really be so self. Had you gone through a period? Eckhart Tolle is another one, the author of The Power of Now. When I read his book, he struggled with depression for years, and he said one day he just decided, I'm not going to worry, not today. And his life changed.
I know.
He's like, I'm not living another Groundhog's Day. I'm not going to live this day again ever. I'm just not going.
He turned the switch.
Had you? Yeah. Did you have a period in your life where you, day after day, was like you were just dragging yourself around, and then you had an aha moment?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I myself have struggled with self-doubt and kind of low self-esteem for quite a bit of my life, and I agree with you that there's a tremendous amount of self-absorption in that too. But I don't think it was like an Eckhart Tolle kind of movement. But I know that there was one point when I was living in California, and as California has so many, and actually I write about this in the book, but California has so many fires, as you know, and my wife and I and our baby daughter, we lost our apartment in one of those fires. But we were living up on the hill, and so we had to kind of, it was really very cinematic the way we had to kind of drive away with fire on all sides, and I described that in the book. But the thing that that kind of kicked in for me there was that out of the corner of my eye, as I was making my way out, I was the one driving the car, I noticed a woman who looked really kind of lost and abandoned. She was standing near the firefighters, but somehow I got, I really sensed that she needed a ride down that hill. And so I quickly pulled the car over and just kind of motioned for her to get in the car, and she did. And it almost happened so like it had been scripted. That's probably the best way to describe it. It happened very, very quickly, but it was like she knew and I knew, and the people in the cars and behind me knew that we were going to get her down that hill, and we did. And she was able to reunite with her family. And the reason that was so powerful for me was because I had always kind of thought of myself as somebody that would get halfway down the hill and then think, you know what, I should have stopped. let that person in. It wasn't that I didn't want to. It was that I just would have been distracted, or I wouldn't have caught on until it was too late. That was kind of the image that I had of myself. And this was the first time that I really kind of saw myself acting very decisively and doing the right thing. And I really felt that it had been a guided moment, like I was maybe somehow kind of all the different times in the past where people had been there for me had kind of finally coalesced into this understanding that I had that I could act, and I could be that angel. And so that maybe that moment was what really kind of kicked it in.
Well, wouldn't it be crazy if you ran across that lady years later and it was reversed? You never know. You never know.
You never know. Yeah, it's a powerful story in a lot of ways, which is why I put it in the book, because even though we had been living in that apartment for close to a year, I had just seen her that morning for the first time. Even before I saw her that one time out of the corner of my eye, we had the briefest of encounters about maybe an hour and a half earlier, just kind of walking through the hall together and saying hi. We'd been living in the same building for 8 months and never seen each other at all. And then that morning I saw her, and that was the morning that I was able to provide that service. So it just, like I said, it all just seemed like it had been just kind of somehow arranged, right? I mean, in the great mystery of things.
Yeah.
Did somebody know this was going to happen, or was somebody helping to set this up or nudge this along? That was the feeling that I was left with.
Now, is I Like You More Each Day, is that a children's book? For off-the-shelf listeners, we're talking, we just got through talking about the Angel Court, which that's something we each have to do, and I encourage you to go out and get the Angel Court book by Andy Boerger, but also to do what's in the book, to do what's in the book, to do the good that we're encouraged to do in the book. So many billions of people read spiritual books from the Bible on, but how many actually do?
Right.
We look out in the world and we're like, is everybody just reading, or is anybody doing this stuff?
Right.
Now, so to talk about one of your other books, and then I definitely want to get to talking about your illustrations, which, again, that just baffles me. But is I Like You More Each Day, is that a children's book? And if so, what ages is I Like You More Each Day? And what a wonderful title. What ages is it that book written for?
I think that I Like You More Each Day is probably for it would definitely be a book that parents could start reading to maybe little girls more than little boys, because the main character is a little girl, but that a little girl would start liking for herself, and maybe hopefully keep liking from anywhere maybe the age of 11 or so. She's Meg is the main character, and she's pretty precocious. She probably looks like about a 5-year-old, I think, maybe a 4-year-old, and but she's a precocious 5-year-old, and so she uses kind of maybe some of the words that I would use rather than a 4-year-old little girl would use, but I don't think in an over-the-top way. I mean, this is definitely not an adult dressed up as a little girl talking, if you know what I mean. I mean, it has she has a child's sensibility. But yeah, I think I guess like if a mom was to start reading these to her daughter when she was 5 or 6, or well, I guess at that age she'd be reading it herself, but maybe even a little bit younger. But it's meant to be more of a book that you would keep. It's kind of like a Winnie the Pooh, or it has a lot of illustrations where it would just be a companion with you for not just one stage of your life, but hopefully you'd make friends with Meg and the people the animals that she interacts with in the book, and you would keep it along with you, because it's verse, and I think they're witty, and so I think that you can get enjoyment out of them pretty much at any age.
Okay. Now, so is this like a storybook, or is a book more a verse? Is there a challenge that Meg faces? Okay.
Well, she does. Yeah, she does. Yes, but it doesn't. There's no narrative. I mean, there's a couple of link pieces. Like at the beginning of the book, she's kind of just fallen off a bike, and she's pretty much saying, I'm not gonna ride this thing. This is just a waste of time. I'm just gonna stick with my three-wheeler because this is hard. And so there's a kind of a witty poem about deciding that, well, forget about this. I'm not going to learn how to ride a bike. But then at the end of the book, there's another poem where she has learned. So there are those sort of character arcs, but each poem itself is meant as an individual kind of vignette or a little story itself.
Now, did you illustrate all of? Yeah. Did you illustrate all the cover and the pages? Not only for I Like You More Each Day, but for each of your books. And can you tell us what is the process of illustrating not just the cover but the pages? Do you literally see images in your head and then you take it and you mirror it on a piece of paper or whatever? How does that work?
It's really sometimes it's like that, and first of all, to answer the question, I did do the artwork for the cover of the Angel Corps too, which is more of a kind of a full-on painting, and then I've done and there are a few illustrations in the Angel Corps, and then plenty of illustrations in Grownups Garden of Verses and I Like You More Each Day and Letting Go, but it's almost hard to describe it that way because I don't really necessarily think that I do see images in my head that I then try to recreate on paper. I think the process is much more interactive, like the hand and the lines that you start with and where they go, and it would be inaccurate to say that I see a picture kind of like fully formed in my head and then I reproduce it. I don't experience it that way at all. But I do think that there are definitely these kind of inspirations. Oh, okay, that's what I see. I want to do something like that. They kind of just pop up in your head, and you think, oh yeah, okay, I could try that. Or I want to do that. That would be a good idea. That'd be fun. So yeah, more like that. Kind of almost like a conversation that you have inside your head that you then continue out onto the paper.
Okay. And you probably, the illustrations, whether it's a cover or the inner pages, brings the book to life. So to what you'd have to pay an illustrator, do you, in addition to illustrating your books, you're saving a lot of money doing that, do you also do illustrations for other children's books, and do you also create and sell your own original artwork? And if so, can you tell our listeners where they can learn more about or purchase your other original pieces?
Oh, thank you. Well, the question about illustrating others, I do that. In fact, so there's a real fun book called "What Does the Tooth Fairy Do with Our Teeth?" by author Denise Barry, and that's a great one for little kids, for small kids, and I did the illustrations for that book. So if I'll just say that one more time, just in case anybody. What Does the Tooth Fairy Do with Our Teeth? That's also a book of verse by Denise Barry, and I did the illustrations in that. My brother Chris Boerger he's started to self-publish some novels, and so I've done the covers for his books. So if anyone wanted to do an Amazon check of does my name, the spelling of my last name, Boerger, with Chris, Chris, and so you can see my art on the cover of his books. But in terms of selling my artwork, yes, that does happen. And one thing that I'm what I really want to work on this summer is promoting goods, T-shirts and maybe mugs and tote bags, things like that. So that would be something. I don't have a website for that yet, but I would just say if anyone wants to, check out what I do have up now, my online presence, then when I'm going to get this going, that you'd be able to buy my work on T-shirts and other forms of things that you can carry, things that you can wear. So that's kind of the plan for this summer, and I'm very excited about it.
Oh, please, will you promise to send me an email so I can check it out when it's open? Please add me to your distribution list.
Absolutely, of course. Yeah.
We had a guest, and I just thought of it, Shu Chin, and she has worked with some national and internationally known folks. And you never know what people do, but she came on Off the Shelf and add me to your distribution list, and she did, and she keeps me up with, she owns a dance company and she in the D.C. area, and she keeps me up with what's going on. And so please add me to your distribution list, because I'd love to see your original artwork and continue supporting you. We got through talking about. Oh, no, thank you. We talked about the Angel Corp and I Like You More Each Day, which is a children's book. You said more for kids age 11 with Meg, and it's a book of verse. Oh, now I want to talk about letting go. This is even just the thought, and it's easier to say than to actually do. It's hard to do.
It might be the hardest, yeah. It really might be the hardest thing of all. Yeah.
And we let go, then we grab back on. It puts me in mind of the Moses Pharaoh. I still think that story is about the same one mind or person, just two sides. There's the one that's for the freedom, and the one that, okay, you can go, but only under these conditions. And then, okay, you can go, no, I changed my mind.
Right, yeah.
We do the same thing inside
That's
of ourselves.
True. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. You're right. That is what that.
It's the same battle inside ourselves. Who are the characters who show up in your book, Letting Go?
There's really only one main character. It's a little boy, but he has his allies, the ones that actually help him break through and let go, are birds. So he's a little boy, but he's a pilot, and so he's in a plane, and in the beginning of the book he's on top of the world. He loves flying. He's in the sky. He calls the sky his home, and his friends are the birds. And then he gets knocked out of the sky. A big storm comes, and that's the beginning of the end for him, in terms of that takes him out of childhood and really kind of just hits him with the cold, hard face of reality. And so he's falling, and he's no longer in control. He's no longer soaring, and then he goes through a series of it's a very short book. It's a parable. It's a fable. Maybe a fable is the right way to put it. But then through a series of episodes, he finally does he lets go, and he gets his wings back in a better way, and he gets new wings, and so that's the story.
Yeah, the storm, the thing that happens that scares us. Again, Morty Lefko, his work, the Lefko Institute, he talks about how when we're kids, we give meanings to things. And even though we don't realize that there are thoughts, or a belief is just a thought you think over and over and over till you're just convinced it's true, even if it's a lie. And these beliefs are hidden. We hide them from ourselves. We gave the event a meaning. You ask your parent for something, they turn around and look at you, and they have a frown. And so you tell yourself, if you ask people for things, it'll make them mad at you, so you don't ask people for stuff. But you gave it that meaning. You don't know why the person is frowning. You gave it that meaning. Right. It turns into a belief. It goes down into the subconscious, and it literally stops you from getting things. It literally controls your life. And you could have dozens of these going on under the surface. So the letting go, the character in your book, a storm comes, something scares it, you give it a meaning, whatever, and he learns, hey, in order to soar again, I got to let this stuff go. What advice can you give someone who's struggling, Andy, either from your personal experience, from working with others, the Angel Corp, helping people, how you see how people respond when others show them love and kindness? But what advice can you give someone who's struggling to forgive her or himself and just once and for all just cut that cord and let go of the past?
Well, I think maybe like I would say that's the once and for all is maybe kind of there's a kind of a danger there of thinking that it's going to be a continual struggle. You're going to it's going to have to be a decision that you make today and today and today. And so of course there's going to be breakthroughs. But I think that anyone who's feeling that they just really want to let go of something, that just exactly what you described with the Pharaoh saying, "Okay, wait a minute, I decided I'm not going to let you go." Those thoughts they'll gradually lose their power as we kind of as we shift our life and we move away from something that doesn't serve us anymore, and we move in another direction. But the very thing that kind of that real glue, that real visceral thing that sticks us to something, that's going to be there in some shape or form, because that's really part of who we are. So I guess the first thing would just be really, really patient with yourself, and let yourself go through all the different the fear. Fear is okay. It's all right to be afraid. It's all right to be worried. It's all right to think that you're making a big mistake. All of those kind of these emotions are okay. They're part of the human experience. And so I guess that maybe it would just be really patient. It's an ongoing process.
And I also think just having the intention, especially if it's a natural intention, to want to continue to awaken and go forward. Mm-hmm. If that's still there, I do believe you'll keep advancing. But patience is important, because it's easy to become impatient with yourself. It is easy to with yourself and with other people. Also to let know other people are on a journey. And don't try to rule their journey. Let them be on their journey as well. Now, you also address how. Go ahead.
Well, you said something there just now that I thought was really powerful, and I totally agreed with, and it just made me think that that we are this idea that we're on a journey, and that life is going to always kind of create just these ways for us to move forward, and some of those are going to be seen as problems, of course. I mean, that's one of the big ones. Is that maybe the second piece of advice that I would give to anyone is that we should think of our life as kind of an experiment. We instead of thinking of it as this big heavy thing that we're doing and that we're always doing it wrong or so forth, we should really kind of enjoy the process of just thinking how much we can learn so much about the human experience through being a human being. And so make it a study. Make your life a study. Make it a kind of a yoga practice, just to be in touch with yourself and all the different experiences that you're having. Just think of it as this incredible learning experience.
Yes. Now, you address how poetry can benefit us, and I'm telling you, such few words. I read a poem years ago by Alice Walker, and I think she used 10 words, and how she packed a wallop with just 10 words. I said, if I could only ever do that. It was, the emotional impact that she used with 10 words was phenomenal. I was like a solid punch with just 10 words. So you talk about how poetry can benefit us in a Grownups Garden of Verses. Can you tell us, how does poetry, though, and a lot of people go in the bookstore, they'll read a whole poetry book. You can sit down in a Barnes & Noble and read the whole book and walk out and don't even buy the book. But how can poetry keep us connected? And before I go on, please buy the book. If you read the whole book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, please.
Staying focused on trying to get and that, and when you go into the bookstore and you read a book of poetry, don't just read the whole book and say, I got something for free. Support the writer.
That's really,
The writer didn't. It wasn't free for the writer.
Yes.
So how can poetry how can it keep us connected to the wonder as we get older and we're like, oh, I've seen trees before. Oh, I've seen birds before. And we lose the wonder of life. How can it help keep us connected to the wonder of life that we had when we were kids?
Yeah, well, that's a great. I think that is what it can do, and I hope that's what I achieve with the Grownups Garden, because these are verse, which when I was a kid I loved the Dr. Seuss and maybe Lewis Carroll and different things, different kinds of verses that I loved as a kid, and then somehow that just kind of goes out. That's the literature for children, and we adults, we're too grown up for that kind of a thing. So the reason I created a Grownups Garden of Verse was something that these would be that same kind of verse style, but it would be for adults. It would be something that we big grown-ups can look at and enjoy and have fun with. So that's a great question. How do we keep that child's mind? And one I think is that one of the great things about poetry is metaphors, and so that one of the reasons that they're so powerful and they can do so much with so few words is because they have that. A lot of them do anyway. They find those metaphors that kind of give us a new way of looking at things. So the beauty of a metaphor is the fresh approach, the fresh way of looking. The way you think, yes, this thing that I see all the time, but now I'm seeing it as something else. That's I never thought of it that way before. And so that kind of returns us to that child's mind, where every day, because we're young, we're still so unformed. Every day we're seeing something with new eyes. We're learning about the world. So I think metaphors and poems, they give us that chance to do that again, to look at things that we had seen before, but see it in a new way. So it's like we're seeing it for the first time. So I think that's the power of poetry, and I definitely for me, I think that. That metaphor is one of the kind of the mainstays of my work, I think, both in drawing and in writing, and also humor, because kids laugh a lot more than adults. they just do. Kids find it easier to, or maybe not every. Maybe I'm overgeneralizing, but I mean just in a general sense, we laugh less as we get older, and I think that's something that's that's too bad that happens, because it's really fun to laugh, and kids kind of seem to have that figured out.
One thing that just popped into my head, my cousin does this and another writer friend, the adult coloring books. I don't know what happens to us, and I'm not saying that when we turn 40 we should act like we're 5 years old, but there's a seriousness that comes with being an adult. You're expected to be like so serious, and then when we do tell jokes, a lot of times adult jokes, they're intended to harm somebody. It's almost like there has to be somebody who's the butt of the joke. When we have our adult humor, as kids we just laugh about more simpler things, and nobody has to be being made fun of. Not that kids can't be mean, but as an adult, when you hear a lot of jokes, there's a group or a single individual who's often the target of the joke. There's just something shifts in us as we get older. How can we, which leads me into this question. So you've written this Grownups Garden of Verse, letting go, how to be a member of the Angel Corps. Just wake up and say, I'm in. If I see an opportunity that the universe presents me to practice love with another person, whether it's helping somebody or just saying a kind word, I'm in, I'm going to do it. All these things.
That's right, yeah.
How can we loosen up more, Andy, and have more fun as adults? Why do we think that being adults means you can't have fun without drugs, without alcohol, without chemicals, just simple, natural fun? How can we loosen up and have more fun as adults without any chemicals involved?
Wow, I think that's a good thing. What you said about the chemicals, because it's not just like the physical chemicals like a drug, but I mean there are chemicals like everybody watching the same television shows and stuff too. What happens is with adults is that we know that we're supposed to have fun, but it becomes these kind of avenues that are somewhat limited. Like you can have fun by going on this vacation, or you can have fun by watching this movie, this Hollywood movie, or you can have fun, as you said, by taking this drug or drinking this alcoholic beverage or going to this club. So it becomes there's a kind of a commercial element, right? You buy fun when you're an adult, and I think when I see kids sometimes they just make it happen. It's not something that's a lot of times it is, because I mean there's so much marketing to children, right? I mean there's so much merchandising of products to kids. So every kid knows what it's like that your eyes light up when you see all those presents under a Christmas tree. So there's going to be a commercial element to happiness pretty much at any stage of your life. That's just the world that we live in. But I do see that children have this way of just making laughter happen out of nothing that is so charming that I think we just have to be willing to be a little bit silly. Frankly, I don't have a great bit of advice that I would give to anybody about that. I think your question is so good, but I don't know what the answer is. But I would say just try to be more spontaneous. Just let yourself be silly the way that kids do, and it won't hurt. It doesn't hurt as much as you think it will. Is that something that if the reason that you don't do something is because you're embarrassed, then try to do it anyway. If it's not going to hurt anybody, just say, okay, I am going to be embarrassed. Well, because this is kind of silly, but when I was a kid, that probably didn't stop me, so I won't let it stop me now either. Yeah.
Yes. Can you share a few? I can hardly believe that we only have 4 minutes left. I feel like we've only been interviewing for 10 minutes, and it's almost over.
Yeah, me too.
Can you share a few? Can you share a few tips? I definitely want to help our off-the-shelf listeners who are writers. Can you share a few tips, Andy, as to what writers can look for in a good book illustrator?
Writers should. There has to be a strong connection. The illustrator would need to, I feel, is going to really have to identify with some aspects of the book that they're being commissioned or asked to write. So if you get a sense that the person is treating it really as only as a job, then there might be times when that would work, where you just need something and it's kind of, I just need somebody that I know has professional skills and they're going to do this and they're going to get this done, and they're just going to treat this as the job that they are going to do for the next 2 months. But I would definitely I would ask writers to try to get a sense that the person who you're giving this project to has a real strong feeling for something about the book, some character in the book, or some maybe the writing itself, the language. Maybe the illustrator really likes the way that this writer crafts paragraphs, and so they would like to make a drawing that would somehow have some of that same energy, that same feeling, so that there would be some form of love or passion that you would get a sense that the illustrator has for some part of the project that you're presenting to them. It doesn't have to be everything. They don't have to feel that your book is like the greatest thing in the world, but there'd be something about your writing that does have appeal to them, because that will be the thing that the illustrator will they'll latch onto that. And that'll make the illustration more interesting than it would have been if that hadn't have been there. So it might like I said, it might be that would be it. Yeah.
Where can listeners get copies of your books, Andy?
Well, I've got my Amazon page. So if you my name is Andy Boerger, AndyBoerger, and there I am. Check out my Amazon page, and the links are there. And I would really love for some readers, some listeners to pick up one or two of my books, because I just think they're fun. They're fun books, and I feel that there's a lot in there. There's slim books. They're not lengthy, but I think there's an economy of words, but a lot gets said. So I really encourage people to buy them, and I really hope you enjoy them, and I think you will.
If you're on any social networks, can you tell us where we can find you on any social media networks?
Well, Facebook definitely. You can definitely. I'll friend anybody that says that they came across this on Facebook. Yeah, definitely, because that's where I spend most of my online presence. And then I post things on Medium.com, and so if you look for me on Medium.com. And if you just wanted to leave a comment under anything that I posted there, saying, "Oh, I heard your interview, and I really liked it," I can stay connected with people that way too. So those are the main ones.
We have been just blessed to have Andy Boerger. He is dialing in, you guys, from Tokyo, and it's probably 1 a.m. there. And Andy is the author of the books The Angel Corpse. And he's also written Letting Go, I Like You More Each Day, and a Grownups Garden of Verses. He's illustrated books for other authors. He's an illustrator and an overall creative. Born in Ohio, same as I am, and ends it all the way up in Tokyo. So we are honored to have him online. His website is Andy's Art, ANDYSART, and it's a hyphen, ANDYBOERGER.blogspot.com. And I for some reason want to leave you with the quote we started with as we wrap up. As I always tell you, you are incredible. I hope one day we all believe this, the truth. You are incredible. You're absolutely amazing. And I encourage you to go out and create a fabulous day for yourself. Put on your calendar. Tell everybody you know who loves books, literature, and life to tune in to Off the Shelf at 11 a.m. New York City time. You can just put it on your calendar. You can put it on your smartphone, put a reminder on your wall calendar. 11 a.m. So I'm going to tune in to Off the Shelf. But I want to leave you with the quote we started with. I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire around me. And Andy talked about a fire he was in an apartment, and where he took his first step toward helping somebody. And then later, now he's writing The Angel Corp and encouraging others to do the same. So we want to thank Andy and hope you will go support him. His last name, again, you can type in Andy in a search engine, Boerger. And he's a great illustrator. Any writers listening looking for an illustrator, you can find him and hit him up. He said he's on Facebook and Medium.com as well. So thank you to Andy. Thank you to all of our listeners. See you back here next Saturday at 11 a.m. And again, go create a fabulous day for yourself. Bye for now, Andy. I'll shoot you an email.
Okay, thanks so much.